Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special session this morning from Channel 9 to Power Experience, Empower Your Agents, sponsored by NICE inContact. My name's Cameron Adams. I'm the Solution Consulting Director for NICE in Australia, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Rich Rose from Channel 9, who will be taking the time this morning to share some of his insights and experiences. Rich is a seasoned contact center executive. He's got more than 20 years experience designing, building and running contact center operations across Europe, Australia and Asia, having managed contact center sales and services teams ranging in size from 30 to 1,300 across multiple industries. Since relocating to Australia in 2008 and co-founding Ubank, Rich has overseen the rollout and rapid growth of Telstra's live chat capability and led customer experience and people operations teams at Tyro Payments and Legal Vision before joining Nine. Nine is one of our earliest CXone customers in Australia, and since going live in early 2019, has had an incredible journey of transformation and adaptation, which Rich will tell you much more about. Over to you, Rich.
Thanks, Cam, and great to virtually meet everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. As Cam said, I'm really here to talk to you today a little bit about some of the things that we've learned, particularly in the last 12 months, what was a very challenging year 2020, to help empower your agents and to future-proof your contact center. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully the slideshow works okay. So as Cam said, my name is Rich Rose. I'm the Director of Customer Service at Nine. And before I talk about the challenges that we faced in 2020, and then what we've learned from that and what I would suggest to you guys moving forwards, I thought it'd be useful just to provide some really brief context about Nine, because there's actually a lot more to Nine than people think. And also then just to give you some brief context about what we call the Customer Service Centre, which is the name for the Nine contact centre. So, understandably, and Cam's a good example, most people think of Nine as Channel 9. But actually there's an awful lot more to it than just free-to-air television. There's radio. We've got the top listened to stations in both Sydney and Melbourne. We've got Australia's most read news brands. We've got the top local video on demand service and much, much more. So just to bring that to life for you, in terms of free-to-air television, you all recognise Channel 9 and some of the fantastic shows that come out of Nine News, 60 Minutes, Lego Masters, Celebrity Apprentice, The Block, just to name a few. But we also have Nine Now, which is our free entertainment video on demand. And, you know, we're here to talk about disruption, and Nine Now is a good example of having to lean into disruption and moving away from the traditional free-to-air service. Nine Now provides that capability to access shows across the day, providing a huge range of different entertainment shows. Radio, as I mentioned, we have in both Melbourne and Sydney, the two most listened to radio stations, and then we also have radio stations in other cities around our wonderful country. We own Stan, which is Australia's leading local subscription video on demand service. I hope a number of you who are watching this are Stan subscribers. And last but by no means least, we've got Australia's leading publishing network with some truly iconic brands. So the Australian Financial Review, that's us at Nine. So is the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age down in Melbourne. We've got the Brisbane Times, WA Today. And then from a purely digital perspective, obviously, we've got nine.com.au. So Nine as a company is much larger with a much greater breadth of brands than people may realise. So I thought that was important context just to share that with you. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the Nine Contact Centre, or as we call it, the CSC, the Customer Service Centre. We support predominantly the digital and print part of the business. So if you think back what I said a moment ago to those really iconic brands, the Australian Financial Review, the Sydney Morning Herald, and The Age, to name three of them, my guys in the contact centre are supporting prospective and existing subscribers who have any inquiries about those wonderful mastheads. We've got about 55 agents that work in the CSC, plus the support team, which is, it's really my leadership team. So we've got about 65 heads in total. The agents, our wonderful agents, handle inbound calls, emails, live chats, and tickets from what we call the web support portal. Those are any forms that come through from our digital assets. We also make lots of outbound calls and have a dedicated outbound team as well. The inquiries that we get are typically related to newspaper deliveries. It could be a subscriber wanting to make a change to their subscription. It might be a prospective subscriber wanting to take out a subscription. We love those. It could be an existing subscriber who's got a technical support question, say regarding the AFR app, for example, on a mobile device, or indeed it could be feedback or suggestions on anything to do with the editorial content that is in our wonderful mastheads. Last bit of context, we handle about 9,000 to 10,000 inbound contacts per week. We're open 7 days a week, and the only days of the year that we're closed are on Christmas Day and Good Friday. Other than that, we are there all the time for our people. Okay, 2020. For everybody, I think it's fair to say it was a year like no other, and we're certainly no different to that. Only I think we had an extra layer of disruption that made it really quite a unique year. Certainly, as Cam said at the beginning, I've been in and around contact centers for 20, 25 years, and I've never experienced a 12 months like the one that we've just had. And whilst 2021 still has its challenges, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit easier. We've learned an awful lot, and I would love to take you through some of the challenges and then what we've learned, and hopefully you'll be able to piggyback some of those moving forwards. So 2020, the year of disruption. COVID, the obvious one, really started to hit in March. That increased our inbound volumes by about 30%. And the contact center leaders that are watching this will absolutely know that a 30% increase in your volumes, that's a big number. You don't have 30% capacity sitting around to just absorb that. So that's a real challenge. In parallel with that, because safety of our people always has been and always will be our #1 priority, we had to get them working from home. So we had this double whammy of these huge additional volumes coming in and the need to get people working from home. We then had the thing that I think makes our year relatively unique. To coincide almost perfectly, if that's the right word, with the COVID challenges, we made a number of changes to newspaper deliveries in the Sydney metro area. And that caused about another 70, 80% of additional volume coming through. So if you can see on the graph there, and apologies, it's a little small, the dark blue lines are the monthly inbound volumes, and the lighter blue line is the equivalent, but in 2019. So in March, we had a 111% increase in inbound volumes. We needed over twice as many people as we got to be able to cope with it. April was a little bit better, but it was still 68% more. Now, as I said before, even at 30%, you can't just find those kind of people. You don't have them laying around. And certainly when it's 2 to 3 times, 50 to 100% increase, you have to look at it quite differently. And so we did. We decided that the only way that we'd be able to service our subscribers as effectively as we could was to enroll the help of an onshore outsourced partner. Within 7 days, we identified a partner. We sorted out commercials, we sorted out the legals, we identified the agents they were going to use, we got them trained, and in 7 days they were taking calls for us. An incredible turnaround. And one of the learnings for me is actually, it's really extraordinary when the heat's really on like that, how you are much more comfortable to make decisions. And I think that's one of the key takeaways for me is why should it take a key disruptive event to get your mind working that way? So that's certainly a key learning for me from 2020. But we got these guys on board very quickly within those 7 days. And don't get me wrong, it took 6 odd weeks to really kind of come out of it, but we did. And they're still a partner of ours today. Across the year, on average, we had a 30% increase in volume versus 2019. So a huge increase that made it an incredibly challenging year. So what was the impact of all of these challenges? If you'd asked me at the beginning, I would have thought the impacts could have been catastrophic. But when I share these results with you, you'll see just what a truly fantastic year it was for us. Like many of you, we measure Net Promoter Score, so likelihood to recommend. Ours increased by 7 points across 2020. First contact resolution increased by 6 points, one of the most critical metrics in a contact center, in my opinion. I'll talk more about that shortly. Our revenue increased by 4%. We are in the business of looking to return on investment for our shareholders. So we want to make a profit. For us to achieve that with all the challenges of 2020, I think is fantastic. But it's this one that I'm most proud of. The fact that we actually increased our employee engagement. During March and April, it was a tremendously challenging time in the Nine contact center. Plus people working from home. For us to have kept engagement level, I would have been happy. To see it increase, I am so proud of my leaders and all of our agents for managing to keep those engagement levels and increase them. I think that's fantastic. And very much linked to that, we saw our attrition reduced by 43 points in 2020. Now, I'd be the first to admit, clearly when COVID was hitting hard, people were not necessarily looking to move jobs because there were jobs that were disappearing. But since things have settled down, our attrition has still remained in really good shape. And I link it directly to that increase in employee engagement. If people were not attriting purely because there were no other jobs, I'm pretty certain you would have seen the engagement go down, and we haven't. We've seen it go up. And then remarkably, we achieved all of that without blowing out our budget. At the end of the year, we were just marginally over our target, and bearing in mind all those additional calls that we had to deal with, bringing on board an external partner, I think that's a really, really great achievement. And basically the additional costs that came in by bringing the partner on board have been netted off by a number of the changes that we've made, which I'll talk you through. So how did we achieve those really great results during a period of incredible disruption? I've broken it down into 3 focus areas. Now there's more than this, but I think these are the 3 key ones. People, 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 and you can see some very small images of my wonderful contact center team there. The actions and behaviors of your contact center leaders, and the technology that you provide your people. So let's take a look at each of those in turn. People, people, people. This saying here has been a mantra of mine for as long as I can remember, that great customer experience is predicated on great people experience. How could you possibly expect your agents to deliver a great customer experience if the experience that they have as an employee is subpar? So, as I say, it's a bit of my mantra and something that we follow very closely within the CSC. I love it, and I'd love more contact center leaders to be thinking through that lens, looking through that lens. Secondly, and I think this is relevant for every contact center, but particularly for an entertainment company like Nine, every time we interact with one of our subscribers or prospective subscribers, I say to my guys, you need to put on a show. And what I mean by that is they need to demonstrate care and attention like no other. It needs to be absolutely on point. Therefore, when we are looking to recruit people, we don't interview them, we audition them, quite literally. And I've just got a few images here that hopefully bring that to life a little bit. So the audition lasts for about 3 hours. There's typically 10 candidates that come along to it. So they rock up and I say, you think you're here to apply for a role in Nine? Well, actually you're here to audition for a part in a major blockbuster movie. We have a little giggle. It's all very theatrical. We take them through the opening titles to the movie, and then we introduce the movie title, which is Nine, the movie. We then get into 4 scenes that we will audition them through. And those 4 scenes are all based upon some of the wonderful assets that exist within Nine. And it's so awesome to be able to leverage people like Scotty Cam, Tracy Grimshaw. These guys gave up some of their time to go on video and record the introductions to these scenes. As you can imagine, you know, these are icons in Australia. They're known from top to bottom and from left to right. For people turning up for what they think is an interview, to have these guys involved, I think, is really special. So we take them through 4 different scenes, and then we wrap up at the end having a bit of fun. And this is just a screen grab of a video that myself and my leadership team created, where we do a version of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but all talking about the audition process and welcoming people to Nine. So, and I think that's really important, that in the audition, you want to put on a show for them as much as you're looking to see how well they can put on a show. So we really do that. We spend about 45 minutes talking about Nine, about the role, about the customer service center. And from my perspective, I don't know what better time you could be spending as a leader in a contact center than ensuring you're recruiting the right people. So that's the audition. Just moving on, a couple of other things from a people perspective. I'm a big fan of engagement surveys, but I'm only a big fan of them if you are prepared to act upon the results, because sometimes you might hear things that you don't necessarily want to, but I think as leaders, it's our duty to act upon those. Because if we say that great CX is predicated on great PX, we owe it to our people to listen and act upon what they're saying. So we do that regularly in the CSC. To bring that to life with one example, lots of people have joined the contact center, and they're candid enough to say, I've not joined to spend the rest of my career in the Nine contact center. I completely get that. But they have joined, Australia's leading entertainment company. And so they're looking for opportunities in other parts of Nine. They felt they didn't exist. So we've introduced formal career pathway opportunities where people can spend time in other parts of the business. And we've already had a number of people spending time in our product teams, our sales teams, finance teams, people and culture teams, and product teams. So we've listened, we're acting, and we will continue to do so. We empower our agents ultimately by avoiding the traditional call center metrics that, in my view, unfortunately still exist in many contact centers today. We focus on what we call care and resolution. And I'm going to ask a virtual question to a virtual crowd, which is, when was the last time you phoned a contact center because you wanted to? Dramatic pause. Obviously, you don't. You phone a contact center or you email a contact center because you need resolution to something. That is the most important thing, is resolution. But you also want to interact with a human being that is nice and cares about you. So if you focus your metrics on ability to care and ability to resolve, all the other traditional things, I think, like advocacy, will look after themselves, because you will create advocates. And that means your subscribers or your customers will stay with you for longer, they'll buy more from you, and they'll advocate more positively for you out in the big wide world. So care and resolution are the things that we really target our people on, and pretty much nothing else, frankly, because those are the things that drive the best outcomes. This third one might seem a little bit cliche, but for us, it's the absolute truth that my job and the other members of my leadership team's job is to serve our agents. They are at the pointy end. They're the ones that are interacting with our subscribers. And our job ultimately is to ensure that they have the right tools, support, processes in place to enable them to be as effective as they possibly can. Yes, we obviously spend some time looking at strategy, but ultimately, I'm here and my guys, my leadership guys, are here to serve our agents. And we've done that so much during 2020, particularly during the really, really challenging times. Okay, let's have a look at leadership action. So this is about, for me, creating a purpose or a mission and a set of values. And the way that we did this in our contact center was by asking the agents. Again, they're the people at the sharp end. So we co-created a mission, which we all now live by, and we listed about 50 or 60 values. We shared that out via a survey, and then very democratically, everybody chose their top 6, and the ones that had the most votes, they're now our 6 values. We place so much importance on those values that it accounts for at least 50% of a scorecard outcome on an agent's performance, and indeed my leader's performance. Because it's not just what you do, it's how you go about doing it. It's super important. People leadership training, we did lots of this in 2020. I've worked in many contact centres or observed them where on a Friday you say to your best agent, congratulations, you're being promoted to a team leader. They rock up on Monday and they're expected to be a great people leader. But nobody's ever told them how to set goals, run a coaching session, manage underperformance, identify and nurture talent. So it might sound obvious, but for us, undertaking people leadership training in those fundamentals had a very profound impact on our performance throughout 2020. I mentioned coaching there as part of the fundamentals. We're religious about our coaching. I've made it very clear that I expect the coachee to be doing a lot more talking than the coach. It is the coachee's training session after all, so they need to come with their agenda items that they want to talk to, and just be very conscious of not talking too much. Let the coachee do the talking. Coaching has really transformed for us in the last 12 months. Effective talent and performance management. This didn't exist 12 months ago, but it does now. We have a very clear way of identifying who the talent is in our contact center, and we measure that through their potential and their performance. And similarly, that enables us to identify the people that need our help more, so people that might be underperforming. Because we've taken all of our leaders through these people leadership training modules, they're now much more equipped, better equipped to be able to identify and nurture our talent and manage any performance issues. And then the third area, technology. So we fully leverage CX1. For those of you that don't know what CX1 is, it's a cloud-based contact center solution. We've had it for a while and it's absolutely fantastic because it enabled us to get our guys working from home immediately. All they needed was a computer and an internet connection, and they were good to go. Since they've been working at home, which is now getting on for 12 months, we've just had no issues with call quality or degradation of service in any way, which I was worried about because I've worked with a number of different contact center solutions where there have been real problems with line quality. For us, as far as our subscribers are concerned, they wouldn't know whether our people are in the office or working from home. So that's been fantastic. We didn't skimp on peripherals. I'm not sure that's the right word. What I mean by that is, we gave everybody a second screen. We made sure they had the right chair. We sorted them out with desks if they needed them because they didn't have appropriate stuff at home. So we didn't skimp on that, even though initially we thought it was only going to be for a few weeks. If you remember the good old days where we thought COVID would only last a very short period of time. Like many of you, I'm sure we've used video meetings, but we're religious about it being video, not on phone, because as a leader, particularly in a coaching session, you can learn an awful lot from the body language that you just wouldn't be able to if it's purely on the phone. So for coaching sessions, team meetings, other one-to-ones, town hall meetings that I run, it's always on video. And last but not least, the technology has enabled us to now tap into a much bigger talent pool than we had before. Before we would say you have to be able to work out of either North Sydney or Pyrmont. Whereas now we say, if you've got an internet connection, you can work from home. Absolutely no problem at all. And that's enabled us, as I say, to get a bigger talent pool, but also to enable some fairly major lifestyle changes. And I'm a good example of that. I lived in Sydney suburbs for many, many years, but I now live in Alpine Victoria in a stunning place called Bright. And it's only possible because of the technology that we have available to us that enables us to work from anywhere. Okay, conscious of time then, just quickly to wrap up. How do you future-proof your contact center? Well, the one thing that's certain, I think, is uncertainty. And if 2020 is anything to go by, and indeed the start of 2021, there's going to be a lot more disruption moving forwards. So my recommendation is to focus on those three things that I said: people, 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 leadership actions, and technology. And here are my top three priorities for those that hopefully you're doing a lot of these already. And if not, hopefully you'll find them useful. So in people, 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 audition your people, don't interview them. Make sure that they can put on the show that you need. Conduct and act upon engagement surveys. They are a critical way of driving up employee engagement, reducing your attrition. And from targeting your agents from a metrics perspective, really focus on the care that they're providing and the resolution that they're providing. Then from a leadership actions perspective, train your people leaders in people leadership. It sounds crazy to say it, but as I said, in my experience, it often doesn't happen. Don't compromise on your coaching time. It's actually your coachee's time and it's really critical. Look after your talent and make sure that you're managing any underperformance. You owe it to the individuals that fall into both of those brackets to do that. And finally, from a technology perspective, get yourself a cloud-based contact center solution if you don't already have one. It takes away all the concerns you have about where your people are going to work from. We've been using CX1. We found CX1 to be absolutely brilliant. So if you haven't spoken to them and you are thinking about a cloud-based solution, I'd strongly recommend reaching out to them. Kit your guys out to work effectively from home, as effectively as if they were in the office. You owe it to your people to do that. And finally, again, stating the obvious, but use video as much as you possibly can. You'll learn so much more about how people are feeling. And that's it for me. So thanks so much for listening, everybody. I guess what I'll do now is hand back over to Cam, and I think we're going to lead a session on question and answers.